Good morning. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, please touch people's heart. Let me see the truth. We're talking about my book. In chapter 5, the church had lied about tithing. Before the law, Jacob vowed to tithe. God would do all this stuff for him. Jacob had 12 sons. Jacob was the grandson of Jacob. Jacob was the grandson of Abraham. And Abraham never tells Jacob to tithe. Abraham never tells Jacob the story that he tithed. Can't find it in the entire Bible. And Jacob, there's no proof that he ever tithed. He had 12 sons. His grandfather was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold. And before they get sent to Egypt, remember they tell you they had no money. Joseph's brothers sold him because they were jealous of him about his dream of his coat. His dream of them bowing out him. He sold him into slavery. What did they buy him for? Did they offer him 5 oranges, 3 apples, and 2 carrots? No, they paid him money. They indeed had money. They got that money, didn't they? They sold Joseph off to Egypt. This all pre-law. Jacob's sons. Nowhere Jacob tells his sons to tithe, not one of them. We can't find it. He never told any of his sons to tithe. Joseph enslaved in Egypt for 13 years and thrown in prison for 13 years. He never tells the baker to tithe. He never tells the butler to tithe. Joseph never tells anybody to tithe. All his time in Egypt, he never tells anyone to tithe. He never requotes the story of Abraham tithe before the law. He never tells anyone in all the time he's in Egypt about Abraham's pre-law tithe. Remember, Joseph was before the law. Jacob was before the law. Remember, Jacob made a vow to tithe, but no proof if he ever fulfilled that vow. If he did, I'd like to know where was it. The Bible doesn't tell us this. And he never tells his 12 sons to tithe or his wives to tithe. You know that not one woman was ever told to tithe in the Bible. Abraham never tells Sarah to tithe, right? So Jacob, we don't know if he ever tithed, right? He never told his 12 sons. That we know is true. And they did indeed have money because they got some money when they sold Joseph to Egypt, who then became a slave because he ran off. You know the story. He's in that horrible prison for years and years. Now he's called. He gets the dream. God gives him the dream. He tells Pharaoh the dream. He's promoted to governor. He never goes to the Pharaoh and tells him, "Oh, Pharaoh, we have to tithe because Abraham tithed before the law. It's a pre-eternal principle. Everybody knows it." He never makes this argument, beloved. And when he gets the wheat, and they chose him, and he stores all the wheat, he never tithes on the wheat. He never tells Pharaoh we have to tithe on the wheat. He never tells Pharaoh Abraham tithed the war, spoils of war. He never tells Pharaoh the story. He never tells the baker or the butler the story in prison. He never quotes this story. Why not? He had plenty of time in his hand. He's in prison for 13 years. He never quotes it. But here we have pastors of today all running around hollering, "Abraham tithed before the law. Abraham tithed before the law." You got their hand, a big old bucket out of their hand because they want somehow receive it. But they can't receive. Who said those who yell Abraham tithed before the law gets the tithe? We can't find that in the Bible now, can we? We know one thing. Jacob didn't run around yelling this. Nowhere, no record that Abraham even told his grandson, who was Jacob. He didn't tell him that. Isaac didn't tell Jacob that either. Jacob never tells his 12 sons or his wife to tithe. And Joseph, the governor who becomes governor of Egypt, never tells the land of Egypt to tithe. Did you know that? All pre-law. Don't pastor try to tell you pre-law, it's eternal principle. But we find no one. We could find Job didn't do it. Didn't do it. We didn't find Abraham himself never tithe money pre-law. We didn't find the children of Israel now, who came from Canaan and entered Egypt. They didn't tithe. When did they tithe? No proof they did be pre-law, did they? Jacob vowed, but when did he do it? Did he tell his sons? No record he ever did. Did Joseph, when he became governor of Egypt, tell the Pharaoh to tithe? When Joseph was in prison with the butler and the baker, did he tell them what was going to happen to them? The baker must have been a horrible baker. right? He told him what happened to him. And the butler, he would tell him he restore his butlership, right? But he never told him Abraham's story. Why not? Why did he have a dream about that? Why did he tell him Abraham's story tied before the law? Oh, they never recorded that. Only tricky pastor tells you that today. Why? An attempt to outright deceive you to tithe. You know, tricky pastor would have been stoned to death if they told this stuff to the Pharisees in Jesus' day. You know that? The Pharisees tried to stone Jesus. The Pharisees believed Abraham was his father. Can you imagine the Pharisees hearing this story? Abraham telling the Gentiles they had to tithe money and give it to a Gentile pastor? The Pharisees went crazy on them. Stoned everyone. They only ever got 10 stones or more upside the head. Go see the truth, beloved. They never tithed in Egypt. Over 400 years in Egypt, they never tithed one time. And then remember when they came back? Remember they had, according to these pastors who lie and lie and lie, they had money to buy the wheat. Now, did they not? Did they give money to Joseph? He put it back in their bag. Did they give money to tithe? Did they give money to buy the wheat? They sure did. They had money. Why is pastors telling you they had no money? Why pastors keep lying? They say they're saved, but all they do is lie. 1 Timothy 6:5 may show you why. Read that. Men of corrupt minds, destitute of the truth, suppose that gain is godliness for such withdraw themselves. Many of these pastors who preach tithing have no clue what they're talking about. They're only looking for a way to get money out of you. So as we see, no one tithed pre-law because we can't find nobody. Not Job, born in a time frame. Not Jacob, who vowed to tithe, but did not. We can't find that. Didn't tell his wives. Didn't tell his sons. None of them who came from Canaan we could find who tithed. And in Egypt, for over 400 years, we can't find one person in Egypt ever being told to tithe by the great Joseph, or ever recounting the story of Abraham tithe before the Lord over 400 years in Egypt. Not one person requoted this story. But here we have tricky pastors screaming their heads off a lot of Sundays about this. Wonder why? An attempt to deceive you, church. Did you know Jesus, Paul, Peter, James, and the entire New Testament didn't run around yelling it. Didn't run around trying to trick a Christian, a Gentile, to tithe because of it. Not one. Let's close. Enjoy my book. See the truth. Study it. Good day.